everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Gen Z podcast. This is quite new to me today. I'm actually recording via Zoom. I've been wanting to kind of play around and experiment with this a little bit and be able to get some video, but in this time of, isolation, it's definitely, I'm used to doing phone guests, but I like to be able to see my guests and be with them kind of in person. So, of course, another thing that technology is pretty amazing for right now. But of course, I was able to, I guess, practice this with my good friend, Amy Landolt, who is actually been on my podcast before. I've had a lot of returning guests lately, but Amy was episode number 5. And today we're on episode 82, which is crazy.
Wow.
Amy is the owner of North Shore Acupuncture Center, and she specializes in acupuncture and cupping and holistic health. She's amazing, and I'm so happy to have you on virtually today. How are you?
I'm great. I'm excited to be back, and it was good to have an excuse to have to wash my hair again.
I know. I kind of threw this at Amy. Like, you guys are going to hear this as an audio, of course, just like a regular podcast normally, but I wanted to use some of the video, for snippets on social media. And so you could, it's more personable. You can see the guests. We can do our selfie that we do since we can't do it in person. But I know, thank you, Amy, for bearing with me as I threw this on you at the last minute. Like, hey, are you up for a Zoom real quick? I'm going to record the video, by the way.
Yeah. Zoom has been my life the last few weeks. So
it's really been quite amazing because I'm still able to do a lot of virtual sessions for personal training and meditation and Reiki, and then teaching my jujitsu classes. I'm just doing virtual workouts for the girls so that they still, get something instead of class. So it's worked out really well.
that's great.
And I love to use it for the podcast now, just another reason. So, but the reason that I wanted Amy on today, she reached out to me a few days ago. She's been doing some of these Zoom meetings and discussions, but to talk about and share tips for boosting our immune system, especially during this time. And yesterday I had done a little bit of a Facebook Live video, just sharing some tips. But I think it's really important right now that we are focusing on ourselves and getting healthy, especially while we have this virus going on. And also, I think these are things that we should be doing all the time. And as Amy's nodding her head, yes. And we're kind of in this forced timeout of, I think, really having to focus on some self-care. So I want Amy to be able to share some of her wonderful guidance and tips with you guys, the audience, to help us stay healthy during this time.
All right.
So, yeah, go ahead, Amy.
So as Jen mentioned, I'm an acupuncturist, and one thing I can talk about really briefly is just some history from Chinese medicine and the immune system. So Chinese medicine is thousands of years old, as you know, and it was developed before we really had a detailed understanding of the circulatory system and the lymph system and all of that. So there isn't a one-to-one match between an immune system and immune system health and Chinese medicine. But in our, I would say, Chinese medicine Bible, which is the Yellow Emperor's Classic of Medicine, there's a book called The Plain Questions. And in chapter 72, I'm not going to try to say the Chinese word, but there's 2 types of qi that we talk about related to immune health. And one is a generic energy that is all of the different types of qi that come together to create our health. So qi based on what we eat, qi based on breathing, just all of these different qis in the body. And then the other qi they talk about, so that I'll call it protective qi, because it's all of those different things together is our protective qi. And then there's a pathogenic qi that is external to us. And pathogenic qi is what comes in and invades our body and makes us sick. So in this instant right now with what we're going through, COVID-19 would be that pathogenic qi. I'll just call it, like I said, pathogenic qi and protective qi. But in
Love it.
this chapter, it says the pathogenic qi cannot invade the body if the protective qi remains strong. So this is just a quote from thousands of years ago. And to me, it's just a reminder of we want to have our health as strong as possible. So when we are exposed to something, especially something as um, contagious as COVID-19, that it minimizes the impact of to our body, that our protective chi is strong enough that it can fight it off. It's not going to prevent us from getting COVID-19. There's no magic bullet that way, but it can prevent the damage or limit the damage that happens. So having strong
Mhm.
protective chi helps protect you from some of those things like diabetes and asthma and heart disease, all those things that we know put us at risk for a pathogen like COVID-19.
But
And
there
so
really
when
is,
we,
yeah,
oh, go
something
ahead.
to that. No,
Yeah,
sorry, there really is something to that with, I think, keeping ourselves strong and healthy so that we're not, you're not saying, of course, there's no magic thing where it's like, oh, you're going to be completely immune to this, but you're not going to be as compromised or in a situation where you have all these other health issues and then all of a sudden, you get exposed to this virus and now your body's trying to fight off all these different things kind of together at once.
exactly. And so to your point, this is a time where we have some time to focus on self-care, and building up your immune system isn't a one night like quick fix type of thing, but we can
Yeah.
use this time to start adding healthier habits to our lives. And so we also talk about with protective chi, what makes it deficient or what makes it weak. And the things that according to Chinese medicine make it weak are lack of quality sleep. I'm all about the sleep and getting high quality sleep. And
So
Jen's
am
got both
I.
hands in her, yeah, she's raising the roof on the
Woo!
sleep.
I'm
Um,
an 8 to 9 hour girl normally, just saying.
exactly,
And I schedule it in. So I don't care, when people say, oh, I can't get sleep, you schedule that. Like anything else, you schedule it in. That's all.
exactly. And just to your point, so 70 years ago, the average amount of sleep that people got was 8 hours. And now the average amount of sleep is 7.2 hours. So in 70 years, we've decreased our sleep by over 20%. And our
Wow.
sleep has evolved over millions of years. We have not evolved in 70 years to reduce our sleep by 20%, right? Like
Right.
that's like
For
a
sure.
second, like a microsecond in evolutionary terms.
Hmm.
So 8 hours of sleep is critical right now. And for some people, like it's allergy season for me right now, I need 9 to 10 hours of sleep.
Hmm. Rest is so important.
Yeah. So quality sleep is one of the things that can make your protective chi weak. The second thing is having poor eating habits, or what you drink as well, we would include with that. And so I'll talk about that a little bit. Movement, so lack of movement impacts your protective chi in Chinese medicine, but also excessive movement. By excessive, just those people that go over the top where they're doing hours of really high intensity workouts multiple times, daily or something like that. Most people don't
Hmm.
run into that issue. So for most people, it's lack of movement. And then the last one is something we don't always talk about a lot, but it's really important. And it's having your emotions flow freely. So what I mean by that is, so in Chinese medicine, it's all about flow and qi. And if your emotions aren't flowing freely, then your qi doesn't flow freely, and that impacts your protective qi. So repressing your emotions, right now, a lot of people are experiencing fear, and they might be trying to repress that instead of expressing it. That can impact your immune system. Or also getting yourself in a loop where you're feeding an emotion. So if you're really worried and you're using your thoughts to just feed that worry, that can cause issues with your protective chi as well. So those are the
I'm so
four
glad we're going to
key
talk about that.
areas. Yeah.
That's amazing. So,
Yeah.
these are all really good points and very, very important. I want to I just really want to drive the point home that these are things, of course, that we're facing a little bit more now, but these are things that we should always be doing in our daily lives because, even when things seem okay, we get back into this grind and this routine and I think neglect ourselves and don't think we need that stuff. But we do. This is something that's important to function all of the time.
Yeah.
And once you build that armor and you have it always, and it's something that you're giving to yourself, I feel like that's a gift that you can give yourself. We are, like you said, building that protective chi so that when things do happen, or even, common illnesses or whatever it may be, not as severe as this time, we're going to be able to deal with it a lot better, or
Right.
even any situation in life.
Right. Because we know we'll have flu season again next year, right? That's
Hmm.
guaranteed. So
Of
what can we
course.
do to avoid that?
Yeah. So go ahead. Let's talk about our first point of sleep.
So sleep, I probably won't talk as much in detail. We just talked about the importance of it.
Hmm.
But probably a key thing I would say is this is a critical time to understand the importance of a bedtime routine. So as we get older, a lot of us don't even have a bedtime routine anymore, right? We think we can work on our computer, then shut it down and go instantly to
Uh
sleep.
huh. Of
But
course.
when you're under a lot of stress like you are right now, a bedtime ritual can be more important than ever that to help you ease into sleep at night. And it's a good thing to do with your family right now, reestablishing a bedtime routine. So I suggest that people take time now to think about when you were little, what was it that helped you fall asleep? We used to have stories read to us, or take a bath, or sing a song. So I would suggest an hour before bed, turning off all of your screens and just doing some things that relax you. So maybe play some music, take a hot bath. I'll mention that again because when you get out of the bathtub and your temperature drops, that signals your body that it's time to sleep. If you want to up level your bath, if you have magnesium salts, not
Oh
magnesium,
yeah.
Epsom salts,
Epsom
which
salt.
have magnesium,
Yep.
or like lavender essential oil, those are things that you can add to your bath as well.
Oh,
They
those
are
are
not things
amazing.
I would go out and buy,
Right.
but you could maybe add those to your next curbside delivery or something.
Exactly. Good notes. Good notation. I love it.
Yes. So a good time to establish those good habits like a bedtime routine right now.
And I think you talked about that when we had our first episode together. And I have to say that I love how you phrase that. And I've talked about clients with that about that too because it's so important. We can't just kind of shut off and just go right to sleep. We kids have a routine, like we still need one. When did that ever happen where it's like, no, you don't need a bedtime routine anymore?
Right, exactly. And so many people I know are on their phones like looking up the latest about COVID-19 right before bed. Well, of course you're
Oh,
not going to be able to sleep. Like that's one of the worst things you could do right now.
absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, there's way too, well, that's a whole other conversation. I think there's something to be said for getting sucked in a little bit too much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you are really struggling with sleep, on my Facebook page and Instagram, I'm posting different sleep tips, including some from Jen all month. So that's a resource you can go to look for more information.
Awesome. We'll talk about it at the end too, but what's your Facebook page?
Yeah.
Just so people,
North Shore Acupuncture Center.
awesome. Good, good. You don't want listeners missing out.
Yeah. So I'll jump to food. And it's really the same as what we say in Western medicine, but I want to make sure that you're eating mainly organic, in season whole foods as much as possible. But one thing in particular with COVID-19, so in Chinese medicine, let me take a step back here for a second.
Hmm.
But it was developed but because of a belief that we are just a microcosm of the universe. So they believed if you observed nature and understood what was happening in nature, it's happening at a similar level within our body. And so whenever we talk about things in Chinese medicine, we talk about it in relation to those metaphors. And so with COVID-19, one of the things we're seeing as it progresses and becomes more serious for people, it appears to be a damp pathogen.
Hmm.
And dampness, the metaphor fits. So when you have dampness in your body, it's just like having dampness in your basement. It's really hard to get rid of, right? It takes a lot of
Yeah.
time. So I want people to know what causes dampness, because you don't want to add dampness to your body now, because that will just make the illness worse if you get it. And
Hmm.
unfortunately, what I see a lot of people doing right now is add dampness. So when people are stressed, they start eating more sugar or they drink more. And sugar and alcohol are two of the key things that add dampness to your body. So we want to avoid or limit our sugar intake, limit alcohol consumption, and limit greasy fried foods as much as possible. So I know sometimes you feel like you need food for comfort. What I would suggest substituting is healthy fats. So healthy fats will help your brain with the anxiety you're feeling. So
Hmm.
maybe instead avocados, macadamia nuts. So for
Oh
me,
yeah.
a comfort food, I want something that is like creamy and buttery and fatty. Macadamia
Hmm.
nuts for me are like, they're the shit.
Oh, they're so good.
Um,
I love it. How
and
about a little
coconut
like,
oil,
yeah, maybe a little like dark chocolate if you're gonna
dark
like a hundred
chocolate. Yeah.
percent, antioxidants. But I think there's always a replacement, like you're talking about. There's a replacement, a healthy replacement or alternative to kind of fill that void.
Right. And then I would say, you want to make sure you have a lot of vitamin C. I've seen a lot of vitamin C always is good for our health, and fighting off viruses in particular. And having vitamin C with bioflavonoids, the bioflavonoids actually help your body absorb the vitamin C better. And
Hmm.
I'm not good at this. So this is something I'm trying to work on. So where do you find bioflavonoids? If you have an orange, that white part that I try to peel every little piece off, that has bioflavonoids. So I'm trying to leave more of that on because it helps me get more vitamin C from the orange. Or if you have a pepper, that little white part that sometimes is
Oh
in there
yeah, on the
besides the
inside.
seeds,
Yep, yep,
keeping
yep.
the white, yep, keeping some of that and eating that, that has bioflavonoids. Grape grape peels are good. I'm fine with the peels. I don't peel my grapes. Um, but those
That'd
are
be a
all
very
good
difficult
ways.
task.
Yeah, all
Yeah.
good ways to get bioflavonoids. And of course, garlic and ginger are really good right now as well.
Oh, I do my lemon ginger turmeric shot every morning.
Yes,
Like
those are
a must.
excellent. Yeah, because those are,
And
we see, so dampness is inflammation. We talk
mhm.
about inflammation, and those, ginger, garlic, lemon are all, turmeric are all good for bringing down inflammation in the body.
This is, something I have to say, sadly. As as coming from an Italian family, I cannot tolerate garlic anymore. This is a side note.
Oh,
I know. It's bad. It's part of like, when I had like my FODMAP sensitivities, like there's certain things I can have and not, but garlic is one of those things that is a no-go.
I don't know if I could do that.
I
Garlic and
I'm
spices.
I'm telling you, I can do, basic spices, but like garlic, onion, some peppers, not so good. Not so good for the tummy,
So you'll
for
have
my
to load
digestive
up on the
system.
ginger then.
Yeah, I'm all about it. Ginger, excellent, excellent.
And
Um,
if you do get a cough, just remember honey is great for coughs. It's actually a better cough suppressant than most things you can buy as a cough suppressant. So,
awesome. Oh, honey, so good. But yeah, that's got to feel real good going down the
yes.
throat.
Yep.
Hmm.
And it's good
To
for
touch
allergies too.
real quick on, I think a lot of times, I think in this situation, um, you know, people are quick to maybe want to self-medicate a little bit with alcohol.
Right.
But that is, and it's hard. Uh, it's that's just a depressant. I mean, that's going to make us kind of spiral even more, I I think, into this um, place of depression and anxiety. And it's, if you can replace it with some healthy boosters and, just try and really pay attention and be aware of that and not kind of just tend to navigate towards, grabbing that drink. Um, it's just, and it's going to bring down the immune system. Like that's, and you don't want that vicious cycle. So I'm glad that you
Yeah.
brought that up.
And it also disrupts your sleep. So a lot of people feel like they need
Hmm.
alcohol to fall asleep, and it
Well,
might
you
help
pass
you
that. It's
fall
a different
asleep
sleep.
earlier, but yeah, it's not the same, and it disrupts your sleep. So it's not a sound of sleep.
Yeah. All good points.
Yes. And then, of course, drinking lots of water is important as well. Always. It just helps your body flush out toxins, and always important to stay hydrated. Even just if you think about we want to breathe through our nose. First of all, that's
Hmm.
important for immune health as well, because your nose is a filter, right? You have your nose hairs and your mucus, and those are there to catch pollen or viruses or bacteria. If you're breathing through your mouth, you don't have that, and it's going straight to your lungs. So breathe through your nose. But if you are not drinking enough water, your nose is going to be dry, your mucus is going to be dry, it's not going to be sticky, and it's not going to catch things as well. So important to be dehydrated, or to be hydrated, not to be dehydrated.
And that's so important. And I know with a lot of my clients, I've been just reminding them, because sometimes you think, oh yeah, I'm home more, maybe like I'm drinking some more water, but it's not the case. Like a lot of people, it's like coffee, constant coffee, and they're trying to get through work and all this, and it's just a constant, like, make sure you're drinking your water, make sure you're drinking your water, um, because that's going to be crucial at this point, and
Right.
always too, and that helps your body feel better too. If you're getting a lot of cramps and things like that, that's obviously a big sign of dehydration too.
Exactly. So water is always important. So those are probably the key things I would say about eating. The other thing in Chinese medicine, how you eat is as important as what you eat. So, making sure that you're sitting down when you eat, ideally not looking at screens or reading, but just focusing on your eating, not eating when you're upset. So another reason not to be on social media, because you might get upset, right? And chewing your food thoroughly. So you really should be chewing it until a bolus forms, so that it's easier to digest when it's in your body. And I talk all the time about not having iced drinks. So trying to drink room temperature water, even your foods, trying to avoid cold foods, because we want your body to digest foods as efficiently as possible. And if your body has to heat up the food to be able to digest it, that is taking qi away from everything else, like fighting off viruses. So we
Mhm.
want to make it as easy on our digestive system as possible. So room temperature water is a big Chinese medicine thing as well.
That's
But
I
also
don't.
most other countries only drink room temperature water as well.
I was gonna say in Italy, like to get an ice cube is the hardest thing. But
Yeah.
I like my water room temp. I don't like it cold. I've never been like that. My mom's always loved like the ice, fill it up water, and I'm like, that's it's like a shock to the system. Like I just don't. Yeah, room temp for me all the way.
Yeah, if you need a lot of ice in your water, I talked about the different metaphors. It means you probably have too much heat in your body, and it'd be good to see your local acupuncturist so they can help clear some of that heat for you.
Yeah. Well, that's good. And mom, I finally got her to go to the chiropractor so she can get some adjustments. And she's been
Good.
dealing, well, now she hasn't been there, but for some issues. And it's like, oh, I feel like mom's finally listening to her daughter
That's
and
great.
taking advice. And I'm like, yes, excellent. So she's experienced some acupuncture, which is great.
That's good.
Hmm.
So those are the first two things, and then we talked about movement. And I'm sure you talk about that all of the time, but right now, I would say just going out for a walk, as long as you're able to still social distance when you are walking.
Mhm.
But I want to remind people of the importance of trying to do some jumping if you're able to physically do that. So that could be as simple as doing some jumping jacks or um, jump rope. Even if you don't
Mhm.
have a rope, you can pretend like you do. Have an imaginary one and jump rope. But when you jump, it actually helps support your lymph system. So your lymph system is important to help move toxins through your body, and it needs movement to work. And so jumping just really helps support your lymph system. And sometimes we forget about, I mean, you could just jump. You could also just
I'm
jump. You don't
gonna
have to,
listen, Amy. I'm gonna play this. I'm glad we're recording this. So all my personal training clients, I'm gonna play this for them when I'm always
good.
having them jump rope and do jumping jacks. Listen, see, this
It's
is from
great.
someone else telling you why
Yeah.
it's this important.
I would not recommend getting a trampoline at this point because we want to limit the number of people going to the hospital, and
Yeah.
trampolines can be dangerous. So just
Yes. Be
stay,
safe. Take
just jumping
caution
on the
in your
ground.
jumping. Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
Maybe have a family competition where you have a long jump competition. That'd be fun.
That's so much fun. Oh my God, I love it. I love it. Yeah, I'm like, this recording's gonna get saved and played over and over again.
Great.
Yep.
So that's the importance of movement. And then the last part is emotions. And so I think what part of it is just making sure that you are finding time to be you. And so for some people, it might be meditation, but meditation can be hard for people as well. And so it could also be maybe playing a favorite song that helps relax you, but really, turning off all your screens when you do that and focusing on the music and hearing the different instruments, trying to pick out the different instruments, paying attention to how your emotions feel as you listen to the music and as the music changes. Um, so you could do that. You could do some painting, anything. So I'm sneakily trying to put mindfulness in here. It could be
I,
going for a
I I
walk.
love it.
It could be going for a walk. Just try to think of doing something and not multitasking and using all of your senses. So if you're for a walk, going for a walk, what do you hear? You hear more birds, you hear fewer planes right now. What do you see? What do you smell? Do you smell like the mud from the rain the other day? Um, what do you feel? Do you feel the wind on your skin? Is the sun warm on your skin, or is there a brisk breeze? You could do that when you're making food. We all have more time to make food right now. So turning off everything and, what do you smell as you're cutting things up? What do you feel? What are the sounds?
Mhm.
So mindfulness is a great way just to be still and be present for things.
I love that. I think it's a time where we can really be creative, and I like how you're speaking to that where it's not, oh, okay, go and try and sit and meditate, which we can understand, but I think sometimes people hear that and they're like, I don't know how to do that. But being still and mindful and present and utilizing those senses and just really kind of taking a time out and just focusing your attention on one thing that you're not multitasking and paying attention to 500 things at once, and being
Mhm.
a little more artistic or creative through cooking, through art, you know, reading, going for a walk, whatever it is, but really just taking that time for you and not being, kind of distracted by everything else going on.
Yep. And one key thing I would say is determining how much time you want to spend every day keeping up to date with COVID-19 and really sticking to that limit so that you're not looking at things all day long. And so identifying what that time is, but also picking your source and being really mindful about what source of information you're going to use. Because if you try to look at everything on social media right now, a lot of it isn't based on facts. And you will drive yourself crazy. You might get all worked up about something that isn't even true, and then when you try to verify it, you find out it isn't true. So pick a source that you trust and look for sources that are focused on science, data, and also our common humanity. So you don't want
Mhm.
the doom and gloom, but who's pointing out the helpers, who's pointing out the common good and our connectedness as well, I think is important.
I completely agree. I think, like we touched on before, we can get really consumed and, um, even especially on social media or different news sources. And I think it is good to kind of specify a time, like, okay, I'm going to pay attention at this time when, the governor speaks or, you know, Dr. Is it Ferrucci? I'm going to say it wrong. Um, but, whatever source you have, you're going to pick those snippets of time and then, you know, go about your day. It's not like you're avoiding the situation and what's going on, but you're also not going to get completely consumed in it because that's going to create so much anxiety and stress. And we know that that's definitely going to bring our immune system down. We need to kind of
Yep.
also take this time as an opportunity.
Yep. And what the other thing I do is maybe I try to set out aside time in the morning where I think about, you know, how is this impacting my family, my business, my financial health, and what's in my control? Because
Hmm.
there's a lot that's outside of my control right now.
Right.
And from what's in my control, what actions can I take? And so I'll make a decision like these are the actions that I can take today. And so then throughout the day, of course, this stuff, this will start coming to my head again, and I'll start worrying about, my mom's health or whatever. And
Hmm.
so I just remind myself, and this is a little bit a combination of mindfulness and my self-compassion practice. So I'll say, okay, you're worried right now. And Jen can see I have my hands on my chest.
Yeah.
But I'll say, yeah, of course you're worried right now. It's natural to be worried. Everyone is worried. But you had your time this morning where you talked about what's in your control and what actions you're going to take. And you don't need to worry about this right now. And then to bring myself to the present, I will look around. I'm looking around my room right now and I'll label some things I see. I see a green lamp or I see a vase over here. What do I hear? I hear the traffic driving by. I can feel the fabric of my jeans. So I use those senses to bring myself to the present again. And maybe a minute later, I'm going to be distracted again and I'll just go through that process. But the more you practice it, it's a practice, the easier it is to not get caught up in your thoughts.
I love that. That's an amazing tip. That's great. And that's super easy. And that's just such a beneficial tool to kind of bring us back into that space. And mindfulness, all of that, just like physical exercise, that's mental exercise. It's going to take time um, and consistency. Like everything, a lot of the things you've talked about, I think represents kind of staying in some kind of routine um, so that we're still, yeah, our daily lives might look a little bit different right now, but I think staying in a routine and practicing certain things for ourselves, um, our bedtime routine, focusing on, looking at what our concerns are, maybe our fears, and recognizing them, and then figuring out what we can do in our action steps, taking self care time, time with the family, then our work time, COVID time, whatever it is. But I think it's kind of sticking in that routine which will help bring a little bit of normalcy to us and also a little more calm.
Yeah, that's a good point. It is building routines for yourself, which is important in this time that isn't as structured.
Definitely. And practicing that, consistency of the self care and the mindfulness is just going to make it easier and a little, you get strong, you get that mental strength, which I think is really important. You can't expect to, like you said, you can't expect to boost your immune system necessarily overnight, and you can't just, you know, have this wonderful mindful practice just overnight. It's going to take time, as with anything, but it's that investment into yourself and your health.
Yeah. And then just besides those things, if you wanted to do just a breathing practice, and again, just doing any of the other things we listed will make a big difference. You don't need to do all of these, but Dr. Andrew Weil has a 4-7-8 breath that's based on pranayama. And
Hmm.
really, with pranayama, the key point is that you're exhaling longer than you inhale. So his 4-7-8 breath, you're inhaling through your nose for 4 seconds, holding your breath for 7, and exhaling through 8. I have some overthinkers that will get really caught up in those. Like, I need it to be exactly 4-7-8. No, the key is that you're exhaling longer than you inhale. And when you do that, it signals your brain to go into rest and digest instead of fight or flight. So if you notice that you're going spinning out of control, just pause, take a deep breath, and make sure you exhale longer than you inhale. And just doing that will make a big difference.
Oh, that's awesome. Yes. So many times we don't focus on the breath, and I think that's one of the biggest tools we can use to instantly give us some calm.
Right. Yep.
It's one of those easy things. One of the functions that we need to live,
Yes.
we we ignore, but it
Water
is
and
kind
breath.
of right. The two most essential things, right? But we need
Water,
those
breath, and sleep.
reminders. Yep. It's funny too.
Yes.
People always ask me that about skin, and it's like water, breathing, sleep, low stress. It's just, eating healthy. I mean, it's a lot of the basic stuff that I think we find so challenging, and we can't just purchase it in a bottle and make it super easy.
Right.
But these are free, essential tools to our lives that if we just kind of increase and focus a little bit on that, we'd all be in a healthier state. And I think this is a big lesson too from everything now is really kind of focusing on our health and the importance of that.
Exactly. Exactly. So,
Absolutely.
most of this, like you said, is very similar to recommendations in Western medicine. Just gave you the Chinese background and perspective on some of those same things.
I love that though. I love knowing the tie-in and the understanding. And I think it's just you're so great at explaining things and making it very simple, I think, for people to follow and creating that connection and kind of, how to and the importance of it. It's it's wonderful. I'm so glad that you put this together and you're able to share all of these tips with everybody because they're so important and they're easy to do.
They're simple.
They're
They're
simple.
simple things. Simple doesn't isn't easier. We'd all be really healthy, right?
That's true. That's true. I would always get irritated when my coaches would say, "Oh, this is easy in jujitsu," and I'm like, "No, it's not easy." But yes,
Yeah.
they're simple enough. Changing that
Yes.
language, it's simple. Simplicity.
Yes. Yeah,
Absolutely.
so just to summarize, I think the key things to focus on are looking at what you can do to improve your sleep, looking at your diet and how you can do that. And I do try to focus more on adding healthy things to my diet than eliminating, just because mentally, adding healthy things feels good to me. And when you add healthy things, then you just don't have space to do some of the unhealthy
Hmm.
things. So if I drink more water and try to eat a lot more vegetables, just as a result, I'll have less alcohol or sugar, for example.
Hmm.
Um, Make sure that you're managing your emotions as well. So finding a way that you can process those. And we talked about using mindfulness just to give yourself the space to feel those um, emotions as well. And then limiting your consumption of social media, news, really anything that makes you heavy. If something makes you feel heavy, that's something to like pay attention to and say, is this really necessary in my life? And if it is, how can I manage it so it has the minimal impact on my health?
That's yes. I love it. So smart. See, you're awesome.
Thank you.
I'm like you do. You just simplify everything. It's great. So much knowledge and information. I absolutely love it.
Good. Well, thank you.
Oh, of course. Thank you, Amy. I'm so glad that you're able to do this. And this is just so beneficial for everybody. And, I just always respect and appreciate your guidance and knowledge. And, this is just such a unique time. And I think, if we can share and help support others at this time, and be kind and compassionate to each other. I think that's the most important thing, staying safe, social distancing, all of that, but still really taking this time for ourselves. I feel like this is, one of the positive things that we're getting out of this situation is that we have more time for us, or we can we can create that change to focus that time on ourselves. I think that's something that's absolutely necessary and a huge lesson that we're all kind of forced to learn right now.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been cooking a lot more than I have in a long time, and it's good to know that we can do this.
Absolutely.
And I can make, I know that's one of the changes I'll make going forward is just doing a lot more at home as far as what I eat. And it's interesting to see what changes will all come out of this with.
I hope that, you know, we do create some new beneficial habits, and that going forward, when things might come back to a certain state of normalcy, that we continue them, and that we
Right.
don't kind of stop and just forget about them, like, oh, I was doing that during that time of COVID-19. I hope we really can kind of hold on to some of those new practices. And I think it's really a good time to kind of reevaluate where you currently are and how you're feeling, and are you content in life, and kind of look at some of the bigger picture goals and what's the priority, and um kind of put some goals together and figure out what you want to really focus on moving forward.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
It's
oh,
been a great time for reflection.
absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I want to thank you again so much for taking the time today and for being like my test dummy on this Zoom, which is great. I'm so excited. This is so much fun. And so, share again your website and where everybody can find you and follow you.
Yes. My website is northshoreacupuncturecenter.com. And I'm also on Facebook and Instagram under North Shore Acupuncture Center. Not .com, just North Shore Acupuncture Center on Instagram and Facebook. And
Awesome.
you can also, if you type in amylandolt.com, it's shorter than North Shore Acupuncture Center. Landolt is LANDOLT. So that's a less typing.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Amy. And to all the listeners out there, any guests or topics you'd like me to have on, go ahead and you can send me a message on my Facebook page at Embrace Amazing with Gen Z, or on Instagram at Embrace Amazing. And if you can, on iTunes, I always appreciate any reviews, 5-star reviews. If you want to leave a little note, that'd be amazing, and share. But I love you all. Thank you so much for the support. And I hope you are all staying safe and healthy and happy. And I will talk to you guys next week. Thanks. Bye.